G.I. Joe is the code name for America's daring, highly trained Special Mission Force. Its purpose, to defend human freedom against Cobra, a ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world.
I wrote that opening explanation of who and what G.I. Joe is and who and what Cobra are, because that's an essential set opening sequence, so anyone who's never seen it can see that and know what they're watching the minute it kicks off.
G.I. Joe!
G.I. Joe is a real American hero, hero being the collective Joes. Their mission, to prevent the terrorist conspiracy of Cobra. This is one focused terrorist group that is ruthlessly determined to do what? Conquer the world. What does that mean? It means bending all to their desires, to benefit them, so that they will be the be-all and the end-all.
Look and tremble!
So Cobra now has an equal and opposite force working for the good, because America is the light in the darkness, as it was amazingly in the 18th century, the kind of distillation of the Greek ideal of democracy, waiting several thousand years, waiting again several hundred years, beginning now really to be perfected. Well, the trick is always to find a central conflict that involves everybody, which means each side has a stake in what that central conflict was.
Magnificent contraption, isn't it? Too expensive for what it does, however.
And just what does it do?
This is the ultimate relay star. It can receive and send the most powerful energy to anywhere at any time.
Hitchcock always called that central conflict, which was the excuse for the activity, he called it the MacGuffin. And he always claimed it really didn't matter. You just had to have something that more or less held water. So I try to create something visual that held water because it's animation. And you can't do it in just sort of philosophical asides and intimations of something through witty dialogue, because talking heads, particularly in 2D cell animation, are death. That's where motion pictures really had to and still have to move, is in animation. So that meant creating some visual component that would be the target, one for the good side, which would use it wisely, the other for the dark side, which would use it to destroy life as we know it.
With my new invention, the Weather Dominator, I shall destroy G.I. Joe with the irresistible power of nature itself!
There is a Hollywood standard of storytelling, which is propulsive narrative fiction, where nobody is in doubt about who the protagonist is, what the universe of the story is, what's at stake, who the bad guys are. Hollywood is very, very good at delineating that and delivering it with impact, where the characters come to life quickly, where the rooting interest is engaged quickly, which is why the Hollywood storytelling technique is the standard of the world. Hollywood television, Hollywood motion pictures. Now, I tend to think that that evolved because America was and is a nation of immigrants. So how did early filmmakers appeal to an audience, many of whom didn't speak or share the same language, the same cultural background? How do you get through to them? Well, you have to identify what the transcendental, visceral kinds of stories and characters are and get them out there, and get them out there quickly, so everyone would feel it if they didn't get it specifically and in depth. And that really is what works now.
Flint, it looks like Destro's playing skyscraper hide and seek.
We can't let him shake us. That nickel-noggin bozo's all the Cobra brass we've got.
This is one bozo who won't be got at all.
I think I have a unique fix on what young people, kids, young people, young adults want and look for. And I came upon it when I was in architectural school. The provost of my alma mater, Carnegie Mellon University, was my mentor. For some reason, the guy liked me. So he volunteered me in a pilot project to determine what grabs young people to buy toys and games. The idea was to discover what the paradigms were, for whom? For toy manufacturers who paid for the pilot project. So I was fortunate, and I was one of those who tested some games and toys with children who were volunteered by their parents, playing with a kid, with a game that you have to share or introduce, a board game with a 6-year-old, and a complicated card game with a very bright 5-year-old. The 6-year-old was a girl, the 5-year-old was a boy. With the Department of Psychology evaluating all of this, filming it, recording the voices particularly to hear how the child's voice changed when receiving or rejecting certain information. All I can tell you is I learned how to approach children. I also came to understand what children need to hook onto, not just children, young adults. What is it they are looking for that appeals to them? It's identification. If a kid can recognize in an adult qualities that he or she ascribes to, heroism is one. Every kid wants to be heroic. Sense of humor is another, a vital one. No kid likes anybody or anything that doesn't have a sense of play about it. So I really had a clearly defined set of requirements to get to an audience of young people. And I remembered that, and I've used it again and again and again.